Over the years, I've seen people miss out on great opportunities, not because they weren't qualified, but because they made easily avoidable mistakes. In this video, I'll break down the 5 biggest mistakes that people make during job interviews, and most importantly, how you can avoid them so you can stand out and land that job you want. Now, as someone who has hired hundreds of people across roles ranging from entry-level analysts to senior executives, I've been in more interviews than I care to count. I've spent 30 years building teams and organizations across tech consulting, analytics, and AI. I've seen what works, what doesn't, and what separates great candidates from the rest. Let's dive into what you should know. This first mistake I've seen far too often: overemphasizing your technical skills. Let me show you how it happens and how you can avoid it. Many candidates focus almost entirely on showcasing their technical skills, thinking it's the only thing that matters. But what they fail to realize is that hiring managers like me are looking for soft skills like adaptability, emotional intelligence, and good communication skills. Technical skills can only carry you so far if you can't work well with a team or communicate your ideas effectively. See, this mistake hurts you because you come across as one-dimensional, and you miss the chance to show some leadership potential. You leave the interviewer wondering how you would do interacting with the client or the rest of the team. You can avoid this mistake in an interview by balancing your technical expertise with soft skills in your responses. You can share examples that combine technical and teamwork and problem-solving capabilities. Share examples like, I used my technical skill to solve this real-world problem, and then I collaborated with the team to deliver results. When we're hiring for an analytics position, which is very technical, we're obviously looking for the technical skills. But when you got to that interview, we've already confirmed a lot of those tech skills. Of course, we're asking you questions during the interview to confirm our thinking about those skills, but we're really looking out for these communication skills that I've talked about in a couple of videos already. But as a team, it's so hard. When someone's got the goods, like, we really want to add them to the team, but it's so risky, and we've made mistakes. And so we always talk about it, and we know the culture is important. We know their ability to interact with us is important, and especially on a project. When you're supporting a client, your technical skills only go so far. We really watch out for those that are so technical that they overcompensate the other things, like meaning that they're overconfident in their technical skills as well. It's not good. You really want to be able to communicate technical things to people that are less technical. So we've passed on candidates often, even though they were super strong technically. It's just a reality. So don't hesitate to work on those other soft skills that I've spoken of. Have you ever wondered why some candidates don't get the job, even if they have the great resume, strong technical skills, and they might even have those soft skills that I spoke of before? It's because they made mistake number 2, failing to research the company. Candidates who show up to an interview without researching the company show a lack of preparation and interest. It's a red flag for hiring managers because it looks like you're lazy and just not really interested in the role. Maybe you've just applied at 10, 20 different companies and you're just hoping to land something. It's a major red flag. It hurts you significantly because you can't tailor your responses to questions towards our mission and goals. You can't apply your skills to what we're trying to achieve. You just come across as generic and certainly not memorable. Remember, some of these roles are competitive. Lots of roles are competitive. Now, not all, because there are times that we really need a lot of you, and so we're looking for quality, but you're not actually competing for one role. But in those instances, you really want to be memorable. You do not want to be generic. So avoid this mistake. You could avoid it with just a limited amount of time. If you spend only 30 minutes researching a company, there are plenty of resources out there. LinkedIn, Glassdoor, the company's website. You'll certainly be able to find a way to weave in an answer to a question that's targeted to what we're trying to accomplish. You can use a specific example, like, I noticed you're launching product X, and I can participate that with my skills in that initiative. Just honestly, like, weaving something in there like that is going to win the day. You don't have to be too specific. Clearly, you don't know the real insight about us, but if you have a clue and you weave that in, it's definitely going to be more memorable. You're definitely going to stand out. I'll tell you one funny story. When I was getting a job back in Las Vegas, when I was just just out of college. I would research the company. In fact, I researched the company even when I was a teenager because someone said that in a business class once, and I just thought, you know what, I'll do that. I even researched the Marriott Corporation when I was, I believe, 17 years old. And the hiring manager was very impressed. I even knew the number of hotels they had. I believe at the time, and I'm probably going to blow this, I think it was 500, and I knew that they had their first hotel in China. So I go back a ways. But I did some research on this company that I was applying for in Las Vegas, and they had casinos around the city of Las Vegas. One of them was called the California. That's it. But when I did my research, my brain said they have a casino in California. So I'm in the interview, and I literally pointed that out. That was the one moment that I thought I'd be a little more memorable than other candidates. And I said, yeah, I noticed you have a casino in California as well. Now, those guys didn't call me out on that mistake, but they brought it up in the future as a funny joke because I did get the job. But I just remember that one. Like, do your research and actually confirm that your brain saw it the right way. I did get the job, so I still stood out. So don't neglect this mistake. Mistake number 3. Picture this. You're in the middle of an interview. It's going pretty good. You ask a question, and the candidate just rambles on and on and on. You lose your train of thought. You're not even paying attention anymore, and it can definitely cost you the job if you're not careful. Candidates often ramble when they're nervous or unprepared, but you clearly come across as unfocused. Hiring managers are looking for clarity and confidence. I think you can tell how it hurts you. It makes it hard for us to follow your point. You clearly come across as disorganized and clearly unprepared. And this is the worst part, you waste a lot of critical interview time. We're trying to get information from you, so try to keep those questions as concise as possible so that we can move on. Now, there's a fine line. Those candidates with the really quick, not one word, but super limited answers, and then you're looking for another question, those aren't good either. There's obviously a sweet spot, but rambling is definitely a bad one. So how could you avoid rambling in an interview? I talked about these frameworks before, but I'll just use it again. It's STAR. You're going to think of answering questions about a situation, a task, action, and result. In fact, I used that in my last video about the 5 critical skills you need to get a tech, and I'll figure out how to include that on these videos soon enough. But STAR, again, it's situation, task, action, and result. When you answer questions with that framework, or at least have a storytelling thought process, beginning, middle, end, you're just going to do way better. You can practice answering questions, typical interview questions, at home so you can get more comfortable. And then also just just try to limit your answers to about 1 to 2 minutes. That's going to really help us keep a good pace. I work in artificial intelligence, and too often candidates are just trying to weave as many strong technical terms as they can into answers. It's really noticeable, and honestly, it makes me uncomfortable about how strong their skills really are. When I'm noticing someone weaving a lot of those things into answers, it may just be book smarts, right? We're looking for the ability to actually execute on the things that are in front of us, and not someone who's just read a lot about it. And when you're just constantly weaving terms into your answers, it's a red flag too. So rambling tends to happen when you're just trying to get more information into an answer. So just be careful. We can get enough out of a 1 to 2 minute answer, and then we'll move on. So don't feel like you just got to pack it all in there. Mistake number 4. Many candidates come prepared to ask questions during an interview, but what they fail to recognize is that not asking the right questions could be a common pitfall. So why is it a mistake? When you don't ask the right questions, it suggests a lack of curiosity and true interest in the role. You miss out on an opportunity to gather real information. I actually always tell candidates that the interview is an opportunity for us to decide about you, but also, I think almost as important, is for you to decide about us. So if you're not asking the right questions to gather information about what makes this decision right for you, you're really missing an opportunity, and I notice it all the time. So how does it hurt you? You come across as passive or disengaged. You miss an opportunity to show genuine interest in us and the role. And of course, you miss that opportunity to form a deeper connection with the interviewer. I know I'm asking a lot, but this video is about how you can really stand out and land that job you want. And this is a fine-tuning moment. When I ask at the end of an interview, usually I'm allowing folks to weave questions into interviews. I'm pretty flexible. But I certainly at the end want to make sure that I've answered any questions that they have. And if the question is like, okay, how long will it take for you to make a decision about this role? Like, it's a terrible question. Like, I may not, typically wouldn't even be able to answer that because it's different all the time. But it's not even that important. Like, what's really important is like asking a question that confirms whether you even want to work for us or not. And you miss that opportunity. Or just asking a totally generic question that you've probably asked to every interviewer ever. Like, tell me why you like working here. Like, I appreciate that. Like, or one time I got a real specific question about our values. Like, the person had done some research about the values of our company, which was great. But then they really got specific about one of the values and what that meant to me and how I lived my life around that value. Totally, it made me have to stop and think, and I had to come up with a decent answer. But why? Like, why would that answer make you stand out? It made you stand out in an actual weird way because it was a strange question. The best questions are like about the role specifically and how their capabilities could match up to a mission that we're trying to accomplish, or is there a specific project that I had in mind for them, and could we talk about that briefly? Like, that's something. Like, or how could they be most effective? How could they provide the biggest impact? Like, what activities could they do? I'm giving you a lot here. What activities could they do once they were on board to have the biggest impact? What initiatives could they get involved in that were most impactful? Like, those are the questions that we love, because that's someone who genuinely cares about growth to start with. And if you had done some research about some of our work, and this is honestly I'm answering questions specifically about tech consulting, that's my world, but everything I'm talking about here would work for any kind of interview. A little research and ask questions specific about the role without getting too ridiculous about the interviewer. Like, you really don't need to know my life. It's not going to help you make a better decision. So just hold off on that one. Mistake number 5 is interesting because personally it's not as impactful to me, but I asked some colleagues and they actually did care a lot about this, so I wanted to put it in there. And it's not following up after an interview. Again, I want to stress that you're trying to stand out. You're trying to be memorable. You're trying not to be generic. Not following up at all is generic. Following up appropriately with a reasonable thank you and how much you appreciated the interview and how you see yourself fitting into that role, like, that's a perfect follow-up. And so it's a mistake not to follow up, because there was a time that we were deciding on a candidate and I couldn't really make the decision. I liked both candidates. We only had room for one. And my colleagues, the people that work on my team, they actually just chose the candidate that followed up. And so this is real. Like, you may get a job because you followed up. Now, it's important to follow up in the right way. Like I said, be short and sweet. And don't expect a big response from us. Hardly ever do I respond, but I typically would say, thanks for following up. I appreciated meeting you as well. We're clearly not going to give you any insights about the potential of you getting the job. That's not going to happen in that kind of a personal moment. We handle that through appropriate, communications. But a nice follow-up that sees yourself in the role is great. If you do 3 to 4 paragraphs, it's way too much. Don't spend that much time on a follow-up, but avoid the mistake of not following up. Just get into the habit of following up with every interviewer that you meet. So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read an exact email that we think is appropriate for you to respond. You could use this as part of your playbook, but I'm going to look over here and read it, and I'll put it up on the screen, and you could take this down. This is a perfect response. We worked to nail this one. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I really enjoyed learning about the challenges your team is tackling with a specific project. You can fill that in. I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute to fill in the company, and I'll put this on the thing. And I'd love to bring my specific skills, again, you fill that in, to the team, period. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need any more information from me. That's it. If you put that in your playbook, if you use that response for every interview, you're going to stand out. And we're going to be thankful. And again, for some people, it's way more important than for me. I'm just getting old and I've done a ton of interviews. And so those responses don't always move the needle for me. But again, every interviewer is different. What you don't want to do is not do it. You don't want to miss out. It's so easy to do. All right, to recap for today, the 5 biggest mistakes that people make when interviewing is to overemphasize their technical skills, not researching the company, having those rambling answers, not asking the right questions, and not following up. If you work on those, if you remember those, if you put these in your playbook, you're going to do way better in your next interview. If this was helpful, please join me as I continue on this journey providing insight, ideas, and strategies for you in career growth, tackling your big challenges. I'm live every day, 9 a.m. DC time, 9 a.m. Eastern time for the 9 at 9. And look out for Launchpad, another series where you get behind the scenes on my efforts to build this thing. I really appreciated bringing this information to you today. Let's grow together.